right, so we have a very special guest today, Mr. Shaquille Dunbar, amazing and established photographer. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I feel blessed. Can't complain. It's good.
So, give me a little background about your story. How did you become a photographer?
It started in high school. There was this project that my high school teacher used to do every year for seniors, and it wasn't photography. It was actually a video. So you'd make like a 5 minute video of yourself, and you would present it at the end of the year. And then when I became a senior, she actually stopped doing that project, but I was just so excited for it that I already had a camera the year prior, so I was recording. Like I've been recording since like my last year of high school. So I
Mm.
got so many external hard drives because I got so much memory. But that really started me into media. And I think after my first year of college, I transitioned into photography just because I needed a camera, and my mom, I said, if I, can I get a camera? She got me one, and it was main function was photography. So then I just started to mess around with that, and it just kept on going from there.
It's funny because I guess we have a kind of a similar story. I went to college for film production and actually fell in love with photography during my tenure there, and I've been a photographer ever since. So,
Okay.
you're born in New York,
Yep.
and you went down south for school. What school did you go to?
So no, I was born and raised in New York, stayed in New York until the age of 22,
Okay.
and moved down to New Orleans when I became like a teacher. So I joined Teach for America, and that helped me move to New York. And that's where I mean, moved to New Orleans, and then in New Orleans is when I really like developed my brand and took what I started in college and kind of told myself that like, all right, I've been doing this for X amount of years. Let me see if I can come into the real world and do this on my own, like just run my own business. And the city showed me love, and it's been growing since then.
What was what was it like being a teacher in New Orleans?
Amazing. Amazing. I say teaching is the best job I've ever had, and especially in New Orleans, where the culture is so rich. Every person you meet, like they're from New Orleans, born and raised, and they're proud about it. And from someone coming from New York, New Yorkers are very proud as well. But it's different in New Orleans because black is it's just different in New Orleans. Like we're in New York is diverse, right? You get a
Mhm.
multitude of different cultures and races. But in New Orleans, I can feel the presence of like, African culture, Caribbean culture. My family's Jamaican. So, when I first drove down to New Orleans, I was like, oh, this feels like a northern Caribbean island to me. So teaching there, it felt like home. It took a while to like get into the culture, just really understand the people, but they're loving people, and because of that, for me, it was easy to transition.
Yeah, I've been to both cities, New York for the Afro Punk Festival, which was amazing. The thing I like about New York is it's a lot of different cultures, like you said, within one city, but there's a lot of like identity there and a lot of pride in New York. And in New Orleans, man, like it is like the polar opposite of New York. You know what I mean? It's like everyone's friendly. When my lady and I went
Mm-hmm.
down there just for a trip, it's like so many people were saying hi, waving, um, telling us, "Wow, you guys look good as a couple," you know. And the food is like,
Out
man,
of this world.
out of the world. Like I gained at least like 10 pounds, and we were only there for like 4 days. You know what I mean?
Man, it's all love. Love is where the kitchen, they show love in the kitchen. So
Right,
it's
right. And you can feel like the ancestors down in New Orleans. You know, I don't know
mhm.
the type of it's just the type of energy there and trees that's like older than most humans just out there. It was a very amazing and enlightening trip, you know.
Mhm. For sure.
So T.O.D Photography, the Optimist Dreamer. How did you come up with the title for your company?
So in college as well. So
Mm,
TOD, the name started, I think, around my third year of college. Yeah, because it was one of the times where I went through like one of the hardest, like emotional time for me. So around my third year of being in college, I went to Binghamton, Sony Binghamton,
mm,
3.5 hours outside of New York City. It was around my third year. I wasn't doing too well in school. I was like a psych major, but not really wanting to be a psych major. I kind of just fell into it. And I had one more year left, and I just stayed in Binghamton for that summer, trying to figure out like, what am I gonna do next? I got to figure it out because I only got 1 year. Me being like I said, my family is Jamaican. I'm the first, like first American born,
mm,
so just that pressure in itself. And I stayed there and I read a lot of books, read a lot of Asada Shakur, Malcolm X, just reading a bunch of quotes, journaling. And I came up with the idea that like, I have, if I'm optimist or like, if I'm optimist, all my dreams could come true, right? I don't have
mm,
to put myself in a box per se. So, uh, and my family was like, yo, do a career that once you get out, you can make some good money. But at the same time, having this passion in the arts, I had to tell myself that like it's you don't have to only do one thing, right? Like if
mm.
you're optimist enough, all your dreams could come true. You just gotta have belief within yourself. So I kind of just tagged the my brand as the Optimist Dreamer, being an optimistic dreamer that no matter what, no matter where I am, no matter what obstacles may stay in my way, I can supersede those and I can do whatever it is that I want to do. So I just used that and it fueled me. And since then, I've just been the Optimist Dreamer.
I've looked at your work and it's amazing, by the way. And
Thank
I've
you.
noticed that you really highlight a lot of like black and brown people. It's like um, the way you photograph them, it complements their features, it tells a story, and it's relatable. Like, is there like is there a thought behind it? Like, I just want to highlight black and brown people, or how does that?
So this is actually funny because this is a story I don't really tell people too much. And I don't know if I really shared it, but my first year teaching in New Orleans, I showed my website. I might have had a website at the time. I showed my students, and this was like a senior class. Like I said, first year teaching, and one of my students called me out at the time. This is like my first year really starting before like all my photos were like in New York,
Hmm.
that I had taken in New York. And one of my students said to me, she was like, "I noticed that you don't have a lot of like black people in your photos." And that really like that's something that I just didn't pay attention to at the time. I was just working with whoever would work with me. And when she pointed that out, I had to really reflect on myself. Like I am not showing my people like in my work. If I'm going to be an artist, and I really want to represent like my culture, like I have to have my people in my work. So from that moment on, like I made a conscious effort to show the essence of whoever I capture and really just being black and brown people. So when I'm taking photos, I like focusing on like expression.
Hmm.
So to me, it's really the eyes. Like I'm looking at people's eyes all the time because I think that really, the eyes is, a image into your soul, or a smile or some kind of distinctive expression that really captures either the feeling in the moment or it can tell the true story like behind that particular individual. And
Hmm.
that's really how I like go into doing portraits because like I said, like I want to get to know the people that I'm taking a picture of, and I want the people who are viewing the image to like get some kind of sense of who that person may be without like going in too deep or without like um, having to say in the caption too much words about who that individual is.
I can definitely see that representation matters, especially in our communities. Even though there has been a surgence of Black and brown people in the media within the last couple of years. Um, Before that, you could hardly see us anywhere on TV or magazines or,
Mm.
and we all have our stories, our different stories. We're not monolithic. We all have a different story to tell. And I really appreciate artists and photographers like you that bring that thought to the forefront.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you're right. Like it just wasn't there. And like I said with New Orleans, them just being proud people, and
Mm,
the school that I taught in was like 99% black folks.
mm,
So for them to feel, for them to first see it and then like call me out on it, I appreciated it. Because that really like made me have to reflect and say that like, okay, like I got to be more intentional because my people matter. I am here because of like everyone who came before me, and that's why like in particular like I shoot a lot of women because like I
mm,
was raised by women,
mm.
and it's a to me it's an honor, like when a woman wants you to take a picture of her in any way shape or form, because then you're like helping, you're presenting her as she wants to be seen, right? It's a certain power in that. So I try to approach certain projects or clients with the idea that like you could have asked anybody, but there's a reason why I feel like you may have asked me.
Um, when I was younger in school, I didn't really have a lot of black male representation for teachers until like later in high school. And I think subconsciously that kind of like deterred me from going into a world of education or reaching some type of higher learning until later on in life. Do you think you being a black male teacher has impacted any of your students' futures at all or lives at all?
100%. 100%. And like you said, being a black male teacher, because even in the school that I taught, I think it was around my third year. I taught at Edna Carr High School in New Orleans
Mm,
for 4 years, and I think around my third year, I was in like maybe a PD session, and people were saying, there aren't that many black male teachers, and I was like, no, there has to be, like, and I thought about it, and I was like, wait, hold up, even in the school that I teach at, there aren't really, like, there are deans that are black,
mm,
there are coaches, but there might have been like a handful. And then even when you think about your white counterparts, they might even supersede how many like black male teachers that are in the school. So at that point, I was like, oh, like this is crazy. But then like teaching my students and the way that I taught. So for me, every single day I did this thing called Person of the Day, which is a portion of the lesson where I presented a historically significant African American person from like, let's say like the 1800s until like present day. And then in that last quarter, I would have students present themselves. And then that like played a huge role in like building my classroom culture, having students just who are not even in my class come to my classroom and want to build that relationship because they know that the education that they're getting in my room is deeper than what I taught, which was geometry. It
mm,
was me like having real conversations with them, because when you're going through history, real topics come up. The youth, they're going to have questions. You're going to have to look them in the eye and have these conversations. And they appreciated me, one, for tackling those issues and being willing to have those conversations with them, and then just being like a black male figure that they could look at and say that like he is intellectual, like he has a mind of his own, he is business driven, he's running a, and I'm young, at that time I might have been like the 24, 25. So they're looking at me in many different ways, but me being a black man in the classroom and showing those different layers, and them like showing my history and where I come from, and the fact that like I'm the first generation here, so I really had to like grind and like build, and like that just it played a huge role. But it took a while to like for me to understand the significance of my role inside the classroom, but once I understood that, it really played different dividends like towards the end.
yeah, like I always say, representation matters. And like the old African proverb, it takes a village. You know, it really does take a village to have male role models to look up to, whether it's a young male or a young woman. You know what I mean? Some people may not have that in the household, or some people may do have it, but still need that extra role model figure, you know, to help build the community up. It's extremely important.
Mhm.
Um, what type of, this is a nerdy question, what type of equipment do you use? Like, what's in your camera bag?
At this moment, I am using a Sony A7 III,
Nice.
primarily with the 24 to 70 or 85 millimeter Sony lenses. And I got a 90 millimeter that I'll use for the beauty shots. And those are the three main lens that I work with. But yeah, Sony.
Yeah, I had to transfer to Sony a couple years ago because I got tired of my neck hurting after long sessions with the Canon and super big lenses.
Same thing here. That's the reason why I started with mirror when I that first year when I graduated college, I started with like a Sony A6000, and then I went to a Nikon D750, and then having that Nikon, I was like, whoa, this thing is heavy. Like I want something where like if I'm on the go, I want like a more portable, a lighter camera because you know when you start putting things on the camera, it gets heavy.
Yeah, yeah.
Lens are heavy. If you got a battery grip on there, it gets heavier. So I need this a little bit more compact.
So do you mainly work with natural light, or do you use any external light sources as well?
Um, External light sources because I prefer. Funny thing is, I prefer doing studio
Mm.
sessions just because I feel like I can control everything with the lighting, especially like in New Orleans where it's hot a lot. The sun
Yeah.
is like we get harsh sun in New
Mm.
Orleans, right? It's not that soft kind of like cloudy day. It's like no clouds, straight sun. So it could be difficult to shoot in that type of setting. So for me, I'll do either or, but I prefer to work indoors.
Yeah, when we were down there for a trip in New Orleans, we were trying to figure out why no one was outside, and it was like a good 95 degrees plus humidity. So that
Step
heat,
outside and
yeah,
immediately sweat.
it's not nothing to play with. Is it harder to get started or to keep going? What was the particular thing that you had to conquer?
Um, Man, it's a little bit of both. I think getting started was definitely difficult because I moved from a totally different city, just
Mm.
kind of like hoping and praying that like it would work out. And at the time when I got started, I mean, like, you know, Instagram was out, but I don't think it was as big as, you know, how people using it now. And really, I was trying to get work off of, or I was trying to collab with people on like Model Mayhem,
Yeah,
or like Facebook try to work with me. And I got lucky because someone from New Orleans, like someone, you know, born and raised, hit me up and was like, "Oh, we want you to shoot this concept." And like they had everything built out. They just like my style. And then through working with this individual, it really like catapult me to like start working with other people because then people within the city saw that like okay they know this person and you know how social media works, they tag you, work just keeps going. And then from there I kind of like built a formula on okay like now I'm building my network of who's in the city, let me start working with people, let me start branding from there. And it's hard getting started because you got to figure out also what you want to do, and that can be the hardest thing because there's just so many different things you can do with photography. You know, learning the type of gear you need to buy when you start, and you thinking you go on YouTube, you go online, and you're like, oh, I need this, I need that, and really you just need to learn the basics.
hmm
um, but to keep going, no, I wouldn't say that's not the hardest thing. It's really like at the point that I am is being selective on who I want to be on my projects, and
mm
being intentional about that. I, there are times like for the past year, I didn't really do any work because of COVID and because like I was doing this public policy fellowship. So I was really focusing on that side of my career. But, the other day I hopped on Instagram and was like, yo, does anybody want to collab? And then I'll get like a bunch of people, which is like phenomenal. Like I love it. But then it's like going through those people and trying to figure out like, okay, so who is real? Like who really does this? Or who's
Mhm.
just here to like just want a picture because I'm trying to build something, right? I'm trying to be like intentional with the work. So, it's never hard to keep going, but just like figuring the right people who belongs on like certain projects, it's probably a hard part for me.
I can agree. It's hard to cipher through people. I want to say Instagram models, but well, since Instagram has become more popular, there's a lot more people who want to pursue a career in modeling, but doesn't really like know the basics or even how to pose or bring some type of emotion in front of the camera. So it's hard for a person like me because everyone wants to get paid at the end of the day.
That's that too. Yeah.
and like I have no problem paying people, but it's like when someone's in demand, they want to get paid like the top dollar, like they was on America's Next Top Model. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
yeah, it's real tough out there.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone who wants to pursue the same career as you?
Um, learn, man. Just learn your equipment, learn yourself. Um, focus on the business side of it. That doesn't get spoken about enough. I
Mm.
mean, if you want to get in photography, you got to be, and you want to be successful at it. Not just be a hobby, but you're hoping to like make this like maybe a side gig or do this full time. That business mindset got to be correct. And what I mean by that is like setting up systems. Understanding what does it look like when someone emails you and you're setting up a system where like how are you going to show them your prices? Like, do you have your prices online? Are you not that type of person? What does communication with your clients look like? How are you going to make them feel comfortable? What does it look like after? What does payment look like? So,
Mm.
like, you could get as creative. Everybody got their own eyes. Everybody got their own vision for certain things. And that comes with time. Like, that can't come overnight. But that business sense, like that needs to be just as important as you trying to develop what your lens is going to be or what your aesthetic is going to be. So anybody coming into the game, like I would say, don't worry about getting the most expensive camera. Just get you a good camera that could last you for a while. When I first started, like I said, I had the Sony A6000 and I had the 50 millimeter lens. And what I would do is every day, I lived in New York City, and I would walk around New York City and just take pictures, just learning the camera, just like learning what I liked. I like building stories at that time. So like I would go around and do different events. I would go to protests, take pictures, learn my camera, go back home, dump the images. Yeah, I used Lightroom at the time predominantly, and just like mess around with Lightroom. A lot of times nowadays people are self-taught. They're using the best university in the world, YouTube. So I would go on YouTube, just watch stuff and just learn. And the more interested you are in learning your craft, the better that you're gonna get. If you're just looking to be successful, that's not gonna come because you gotta love the grind, right? Like they always say that. Like if you have a passion for something, you're gonna love putting in the work, and that's gonna feed whatever you're trying to do. But I would emphasize to like anybody who's trying to be an artist, like not even photography, really, like get your business mindset correct. Know how you're going to approach your clients, and then that everything is going to work out from there. Because for me, I know that took me some time to like get that business side right and build systems that I know can function right, for me. Like I'm doing this part-time right now,
Mm.
so I need systems that uh, function correct so that I could do my main job and not have to really worry about, how exactly, if this person emails me, how does this work? How am I going to send out contracts? What does invoice looks like? Um, so yeah, that stuff is like super important.
Yeah, I can agree with that. When I first started out, I was kind of intimidated because every photographer or colleague that I had like the latest lens or the most high priced camera. And you and me both know that photography is an expensive career to have. And um, equipment become obsolete after like the first 3 years, you know what I mean? There's always something new and better. Um, do you just work with DSLRs, mirrorless, or do you dabble in film as well?
So I recently started dabbling in film. I think last year, like before COVID, I had bought my first 35 millimeter. I bought a Nikon FE2,
Mm,
um, and started messing around with that just because I've been shooting on, DSLRs and mirrorless since 2013. So for a couple years now, and I was like, all right, like I'm ready to tap into like that film world, and it's cool. Like I definitely want to get into it more. And I recently rented a medium format because I seen her mom's like old photos, like I think she, like pregnancy photos, and it was done on medium format, and they look like phenomenal.
yeah,
These photos might have been taken in the 80s, and they just look like amazing, like still perfect to this day. And I just love the aesthetic behind it. So I rented a Mamiya 645,
mm,
bought a bunch of 120 film and messed around with that, and I loved it. I loved it. I really, at some point, I would love to get my own. Maybe get like a Pentax 6.7, or I thought about a was it Mamiya RB, but them things too heavy.
yeah,
I like portability. So I've definitely dabbled it into a little bit. It's something I want to explore more because I think, especially like I think nowadays, if you really start off with film and you switch to digital, you'll just be like on a different level because
yeah,
the level of precision you need to have when you press that when you press the trigger. I mean, that's money right there.
yeah.
That
You
is
only get like a certain amount of frames when you're working with film.
exactly, you get every time you take a photo, that is money. So you're just like more aware of or more conscious of the photos you're taking rather than just pressing the button without any conscious whatsoever, which is cool. Like it's a totally different way to work. And I like that a lot because you're just more methodical. And I think it changes the way that you may work with a model
Yeah,
because a lot of times when I work, I hear, "Oh, I don't need to worry about it because it'll be changed on Photoshop." And anybody I work with, even like before the shoot, I like to tell them that like we're doing this so that there's little work for me to do on Photoshop. Like
mm,
not because it can be done on Photoshop, we're gonna approach the situation like, "Oh, it's all good." Like when you have a film camera, that changes everything. Like, yeah, you could do some things on Photoshop, but the intention, like you're intentionally using film so that you're not like doing the extra
yeah,
editing. You're trying to keep that natural aesthetic and that beauty behind it because there's a distinctive look you get from film, even if you try to do it on. They got these presets or certain things you can do to edit your digitals to make it look like film, but
mm.
you can never get that. You could never get the same exact look.
I recently started dabbling in it myself before COVID, and recently purchased a Minolta. I forget the model, but I was out in the field, and every time I took a shot, I would look at the back of the camera. Like I'm programmed to look at
Mm-hmm.
my mirrorless. Like let me check for the image, but um, it makes you slow down, and like you said, you have to take intentional images with it, you know.
Yep.
Um, and it's a whole different process. It's definitely a whole different process. What makes a good image to you?
I just a feeling. For me, it's just a feeling. Like I say, like when I'm taking portraits, I'm looking at people's eyes. So one picture that I got on my Instagram is like this picture of a baby sitting on like his mom's lap. And that's one of my like coworkers, one of my friends, her sister. My homie was doing this project, and we asked one of her sisters and her mom could come out, and we took pictures. And I just took a picture of her baby like sitting on her lap, and it's just like the expression, the
Mm,
feeling I get just looking at it. I just know when I'm flipping through, and I could take like 100 photos, and there's that one that you're just constantly going back. There's just something about it. You can't put your tongue on it. It might be just like the twinkle of the eyes. It might be just a smirk, like on a like it might be something so small. But when I feel something looking at the photo, like when I show somebody else and then like they just get a feeling,
mm,
like even if you can't fully explain it, I know that like okay, I got something. There's something here, rather than like just looking at it like I've seen this before. Oh, there's nothing really like it's just another photo. So I'm looking at people's eyes. I'm looking at certain things that they're doing with their lips. Um, and then I really like to stick with the face. Like I'm a huge like just
mm.
looking at you, because I think that's where the soul is. That's where you really could tell, who somebody is in that particular moment in time.
Yeah, I can agree with that. It's like you could, I guess, tell someone's history. Um, when I first started off, I would walk through DC and find homeless people, give them a couple dollars here and there, and just ask to take their picture. And it's like their whole life was written on their face,
Mhm.
through circumstance, through whatever traumas that they've been through. And just taking that picture and sharing it brings awareness to different situations and circumstances. Um, how do you how do you go about photographing protests? You say you used to go out and photograph. How do you go about photographing protests? Like, what's your thought process behind it? Do you go out there with a certain idea on what you want to get? Do you go out and just snap away, or do you find like specific moments that make you feel a certain type of way?
A lot of it is just run and gun. Like I'm just out there snapping. I'm looking around a lot. Like nowadays, I've stopped doing that. Like that. At first, it was okay. I'm going now. I'm just snapping a bunch of pictures.
Yeah.
And even then, like I, I'm a very observant person. Like throughout, like not just photography. Like I'm very reserved. I'm pretty quiet because I'm always sitting back, just looking at what's going on.
Mm,
So even when I'm out there taking pictures of protests, I always take a step back, and just kind of like look around me, because I'm not afraid of missing a moment, right? Like sometimes when you do an event, you're like, I just got to keep snapping because what if I miss something?
mm,
But I like to take a step back and just kind of like look around to see, what's going on. Where should I be? Where is this going to lead? Um, what are the people feeling? Like I'm looking into people's eyes. I'm looking into people like how people hold in like, their signs. Does somebody have their baby next to them? How are they clutching their baby? What does it look like? Is there a mom with her kids? Who are people with through this protest? And I think once you start, thinking and looking, then you could like build those stories, because a protest is a story. There's an intention behind it. Are people out there for a reason? So looking at each individual and kind of figuring out like, okay, why are they here? Without having to go up to them and ask them, because I don't want to take away from like that feeling and the reason that brought them
mm,
to the protest, right? I'm not a videographer, so I don't really need to like, hear anything. I'm more like, let me just take a step back and observe. And then through those observations and just like running around, I'm able to like capture um, some of my favorite photos. I think the first protest I took photos of was Million Man March, or Millions March, New York City,
mm.
back in like 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
um and it was one of my favorite photos. It's black and white. um I remember I was like running down the street, and I'm looking and I just stopped. I like literally stopped. I see like I'm looking at someone on my left and they're looking to their right. And I see them looking to the right. And then I look over and I'm right in front of a Starbucks or some kind of coffee shop. And you can see the people inside looking at the march happening. And so I took a photo of the people looking at the march. And then through the reflection, you can also see what they're looking at,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So that photo was like one of my favorite because it just so many different layers to that, right? Like you're looking at the people, the person or the individuals in the shop, and you're like, wow, look at their faces, but you can see what they see and you can feel that, and they're putting it in black and white. You know, that's photojournalism right there. It makes the picture timeless. That's how I mean. I feel like black and whites kind of make things timeless.
Mm.
So after that moment, that really showed me like, okay, there's more to it. You got to be more methodical and not just like run around. You know, it doesn't hurt to stop. There's no moment that you are going to miss. You know, but be intentional because at the end of the day, if I'm putting the photo out there and I'm trying to build a brand, you know, I want my photos to represent something. I want my brand to represent something, and that's being able to tell a story through a series of photos or just by image itself.
Mm. I can dig that. I went to a march here in DC. I think it was a little bit after Anthony Brown died, or got murdered. And what blew me about the situation was there were the Nation of Islam there. There was Moors there. There was the Black Panthers. Like there were so many um, nomination of Black people and Black leaders in one, you know, and everyone came together and marched for a single cause. You know what I mean? And just sitting there feeling that energy and capturing those images and showing people that we are, as Black people, are not monolithic. Like we come in many different shades and facets and backgrounds and what have you. But at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, we always come together when we demand something to change or when we need something to change.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Just a few more questions for you. Do you have any famous photographers that you look up to or gain inspiration from?
Um, I mean, you know, there's Gordon Parks, who is like the legend. Um, I have I mean, no one specific person, individual. I know one specific person. I would say I'm always looking at different photographers and what they do,
Mm,
um, and then sometimes I don't. Like I look at like past artists and try to like look at different stories or how they shot things, but then I also don't like doing that because after a while I like stop looking at other people's work, whether it be old or new,
mm,
because then you fall into the trap of trying to replicate it, which you know isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think that's okay when you're like trying to learn, but then you know you want to build your own eye. Um, but I just like the way that people like Gordon Parks just told stories and didn't really. It wasn't a like let's find a model, let's
mm.
find like let's do fashion. It was more or less of like there are things happening in the neighborhood and we need to tell these stories. We need people to see like, you know, how do people how was black people living in Harlem? You
Yeah,
know, what was it like when Ali was like really, you know, having to face all these different people because of what religion he chose or because he wanted to change his name, and you know, so there was more, they were they were intentional about like just telling the black story. And for me that's what I look at, more or less of like uh why what was the purpose of photography back then? It was to show what was happening in the culture.
mm,
And for me, like, although I do work with models and I'll do like some fashion and beauty stuff, I like to layer it with some essence of like black culture. So with that, like that's why I might go back and like look at, you know, previous black artists, or I don't look really per se like you know, my contemporaries right now, just because I don't know, the media is weird, man. The media is weird. I think it just has so much. I mean, I think the media always had power, but I think it has like because of social media, it has way more power now, and I think that's it's influenced the way how people capture things. It isn't the same how it was before. Before it was to tell our story. Right now it's just for like whatever. I just feel like it's not the same.
I think social media is a gift and a curse at the same time because um, when I look at different photographers' pages, a lot of the work looks the same, whether it's the type of model, the type of poses, the type of content, even the type of edits. Like the tones all look the same, and I don't know whether people wants to compare themselves or um, mimic other people. I mean, that could be good in a sense, but it just seems like there's no individuality with it anymore. Which is why I love your work. There was a picture that I seen that really caught my eye on your website. I don't know if you were. It just looked like a neighborhood down south. You know what I mean? Like, uh, and there was a lady with overalls on, and she had like so much going, like so much story and so much going on in her facial features. You know what I mean? And stories like that are amazing for people who never been to that part of the world or that part of town, like just seeing that type of representation. um it looks harsh but yet beautiful at the same time. Like work like that I really love and look up to.
Thank you. Yeah, man, like sometimes I do fall I myself even fall in the trap sometimes and like wanting to do things that I see that's popular online, or I've done that like in my past, but like now I try to be just I try to do what I want to do. And the best way of doing that is like not looking online too much. But
Hmm.
with like New Orleans, going back to that, like they are proud people of their culture. Like they're proud of their culture. And one of the best things they have is like second lines, which are on Sundays. They're just like festival. I mean, they're just dances and festivals and like love shown in the streets. Um, all different neighborhoods do it. And then that's when you can really, capture people and tell those stories. But all of that just goes back to what I feel to be like the original intention behind like a lot of our favorite artists back in the days, why they chose to pick up a camera, because it was like we got to really show our people. We got to make sure that when textbooks are being made, or when we make our own books, that we have our history to show and um, capture what we feel represents ourselves. And then even with the editing part, that's something that's so difficult for me to like think about like how I'm gonna edit my photos, because really like I approach each photo differently. I might have certain things that I might do that's similar, but I try not to make, or I don't want everything to look exactly the same. Like I want to look, but I don't want everything to be the exact same, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Just because I think that each scenario, each person is different. There's a
Yeah.
different feeling that a photo may give you in that moment. So you can't really like. Some people do have a template style, which is like great because it means consistency and that's part of your brand. But at the same time, for me, when I'm doing like storytelling, when I'm doing like photojournalism or whatever the type of style is, I want to approach it in its unique way, just because what I'm capturing is different than what I may have done the week before.
Yeah, it definitely reminds like your work. It kind of reminds me of this New York based photographer called Khalik Allah. I don't know if you ever heard of him,
Uh,
but he mostly takes pictures at night, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, because New York is always busy,
mhm.
and he captures those people who just walking down the street you might not even notice them. You know what I mean? Like people who are considered invisible to like the common person or whatever. And your work, your photojournalism kind of reminds me of that. Like it's showing us the people are here. They're not invisible. They're actual people with actual stories.
That's the purpose. I mean, everyone's important, everyone is important. And going back to like the popular work right now, which is model, fashion, beauty, um, which is great because I do it.
Mm,
But at the end of the day, everyone is not a model, but we're all people, and everybody want to be captured. Is just like if you know how to capture those day to day people or those invisible people, then you can capture anyone in any given moment at any time. It's really just learning how to connect with people on a different level.
yeah. One last question, and do you mind if we play a quick little game called This or That after?
Yeah, yeah, let's do it.
All right. What would you tell a young Shaquille Dunbar um that's starting in the field? Like what advice would you give a younger version of yourself um that you know now that you wouldn't know before?
Um, Everything you need is within you, and confidence is key, especially in the year and the days of like social media where it's so easy to compare yourself. And I fall into that trap.
Mm,
Like I spent a long time just like comparing myself, trying to find myself while looking for myself in other people's work or in other things that I saw online,
mm,
when everything I have is right here within me. So I would tell young Shaq that like, it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to not know what you're doing, but that's part of the game. That like that's part of growth. Like my shirt, it says like you never lose. I either win or I learn.
mm,
And that's just how you got to approach life. That's how you got to approach like this business, because you can't lose when you're doing it your way. But the moment you compare yourself and try to like reach what you think another person may have, I mean, you're just gonna lose every time because what are you really comparing yourself to?
mm.
You really have no clue because you're basing it off of what you may see, not what you know. So I would tell young Shaq to like just stay confident, reflect in yourself, and like from there on, you got everything you need. You'll go from there.
I love that, man. That's deep. All right, let's play this or that. I'm going to ask you a question with two answers, but you can only choose one and tell me why. The
Okay.
whole world depends on your answers that you give today. All right, let's start. Nikon or Sony?
Sony. Oh, I say why you said?
Yeah, why?
Uh, because I like their technology. I like their mirrorless cameras, and they have a lot of lens. Yeah, they got a lot of different lenses that I like.
Mm, okay. Strobes or speed lights?
Um, I'll go with strobes. Indoors, I think they're more powerful. Speed lights, they're cool for events and stuff for me, but I like my strobes.
All right. Chili, beans or no beans?
Oh, beans for sure. For sure with beans. I don't know if it's chili if there's no beans in there.
um, a flat tire or run out of gas?
A flat tire.
Yeah.
I could, I got a donut in the back or, something, but run out of gas and I'm stuck. I don't know. I'm gonna have to walk. I don't know. I just feel more comfortable if I know how to change a tire. I don't know what to do if I don't got no gas.
Okay, okay. Working with a model or photojournalism or street photography?
uh, Street photography. It's to my nature. I'm observant. I like watching people. I like capturing what's going on. And then there's like there's no burden or pressure.
Mm,
You just working with the people.
volunteer or donate money?
Um, Volunteer. I think when you're volunteering, you could do more. I could show more of myself. I can there's lessons to be learned. It's easy to donate. I think with volunteer, you putting in that work, you're really building connections.
Mm.
So I put in volunteer.
College, yes or no?
Yeah, for sure. I think I learned a lot, not academics. Like I didn't learn like for academics, I really didn't learn that much to be honest. But in terms of like socializing with people, learning different cultures, being independent, there's a lot of things college can teach you. You can also learn in the real world, but I think college is more of a quote unquote safer environment because it's a little bit
Mhm.
more control and you got your peers there rather than just being thrown out in the world and then really just having to learn it like that.
All right, last one. This is on potato chips. Sour cream and onion or barbecue?
Sour cream and onion.
What?
I
Over
don't.
the
I
barbecue?
know. I know. I know. I love barbecue. Funny, I love barbecue, but I don't know. Barbecue chips just taste weird to me, and I'm a barbecue dude. Like I love barbecue, but I'm going with that sour cream and funky breath.
Yeah, I could feel that, man. This wasn't a choice, but I would choose salt and vinegar all day.
That's a good choice too. That's a good choice too.
Well, I want to thank you again for joining us today. Can you let our listeners know how they can find your art, or if they want to reach out for a session, how they can do that?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. If anybody's looking for my work, you can find it on Instagram at the Optimist Dreamer, or you can go to my website at T.O.D Photography. Either or places work, you'll find me. You can book a session by going to contact, or you can just DM me on Instagram. Prefer you to send an email. And if you want to send an email, you can send it at theoptimistdreamer@gmail.com.
Perfect, perfect. Quick, my lady just said, tell your wife she said hello.
I will. I will.
All right, thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that.
No
All right,
problem.
man.
Peace.
Enjoy. Peace.